Very good. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Brian Baumgartel. I have a degree in physics, oddly enough, and I'm also an REHS, which is a registered environmental health specialist. As Ryan said, I'm a senior environmental project specialist with the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment. Also director of the Mass TC Alternative Septic System Test Center. We're out on Joint Base Cape Cod. It's a slightly sunny day today, so we're kind of excited to be able to go out and do a little work in the field in a little bit. But I'm here today mostly to talk to you about the Community Septic Management Loan Program, or as we call it internally, the CSMLP program. It's a program that's run by the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, which is and sort of an offshoot of the community septic management program that the state had offered a number of years ago to individual communities. But I just want to give you a quick sort of assessment of what Barnstable County does in terms of wastewater type of stuff. So obviously we have the Community Septic Management Loan Program, CSMLP. We do track all of the innovative and alternative septic systems on the Cape and Islands and provide management for those systems. We do that on behalf of the 15 towns. So innovative alternative septic systems, for those who might not be familiar, are systems that are a step above what we consider just to be a standard Title V system. They are intended to treat wastewater to a higher standard. So rather than mere disposal, which is what a Title V system is really intended and designed to do, alternative septic systems provide additional treatment, and they can be used for a couple different scenarios. In cases where someone might want to do a reduced size leach field, they could be required to put on an IA system to reduce the incoming organic load from the wastewater coming from the house. If they live in what's called a nitrogen sensitive area, like a zone 2, which is a public wellhead zone of protection. And many of the towns on the Cape do have those areas. In particular, I live in Mashpee. Most of Mashpee is a zone 2. The exception, I guess, would be Falmouth, which is a public or a surface water supply. So in those areas, there is a limitation of 4 bedrooms per acre for the nitrogen loading restriction. If somebody wants to have, say, 3 bedrooms on a half acre, they might be required to put in an IA system in order to reduce the nitrogen loading. One of the other options that somebody might have in one of those scenarios is what's called a nitrogen aggregation plan, where they can either purchase or, if it's a development or something like that, in a parcel maybe upgradient or within the same zone 2, that would add some land onto their sort of property so that they can get the full acre, even though they might have, say, a half acre, so they could do 4 bedrooms on that house. The requirement for that particular piece of property that they purchase would be a conservation restriction, so nothing can ever be done with that piece of property. It's held permanently in that state. The Massachusetts Alternative Septic System Test Center, which is where I'm actually located right at the moment, is a 2-acre facility on Joint Base Cape Cod where we test all sorts of alternative septic system technologies. We do everything from what we call black box technology, or what some of you might be familiar as the FAST type of technology, or BioClear, Advantex. So those technologies have all been through here at one point or another to receive certification testing. There are other companies who come here and do research and development for products. So they might have an idea on a napkin and they want to test it out. So they come here where they can install it. We give it wastewater, we do the testing for them, and they can tweak it and get it right until they're satisfied with their result. And we've had a couple success stories where people have actually been able to take products off of a napkin and turn them into successful commercial products. And we also do some testing related to sort of the offshoots of wastewater, on-site wastewater technology. Right now we're running a sensor challenge, which is done through EPA. It's the Advanced Septic System Sensor Challenge. That challenge is intended to spur private industry to come up with an inexpensive nitrogen sensor that could be deployed on an on-site system so that regulators could monitor it remotely. So hopefully be able to reduce the cost, the long-term cost of sampling for IA systems, which as some of you may know, can be a bit pricey. Like for a system where they're required to do maybe quarterly testing, you're talking about a contract for that property that can run, $1,200, $1,500. So if we can per year, so if we can get a sensor that costs, $1,000 or $1,500 that can be deployed with the system when it's first installed and report the data directly to a cloud somewhere, there's some cost savings to be had there. The Cape Cod Groundwater Guardians is a joint project that we have with the Cooperative Extension. The idea there is sort of informational, so we try to get sort of groundwater protection messaging out to the citizens of Cape Cod. There's the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative, which has been in existence for a number of years. It currently exists with the Cape Cod Commission. It's a group of representatives from each town on the Cape, and they get together once every couple months to discuss progress on wastewater treatment initiatives or stormwater treatment initiatives. The 208 plan, which was done by the Cape Cod Commission within the last few years, which is sort of intended as so we call it like a recipe book, which provides towns with information about potential solutions that they could pursue to address their nitrogen issues. There's also the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, which is also being run by the Cape Cod Commission. That was passed within the last year. That's the fund that is funded by the new short-term rental tax that came into effect this year. I don't recall exactly off the top of my head. I think it's 2.5% goes into that.
2.75%.
2.75.
It's been in for 2 years now. Yes.
Yes.
And
Okay.
collecting it's the extra 2.75 on top of the state and local on short-term rentals and hotels.
Okay, thank you for that correction. I appreciate that. So the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund is intended, to my best understanding, to be sort of a reimbursement to the towns so when they have an approved wastewater project with DEP that is funded under the state revolving fund, the Water Protection Fund is able to reimburse the town for a certain percentage of their costs of that grant funded project, the state revolving funded project, rather than them having to go and get additional loans from the revolving fund. So, those are sort of the core functions of wastewater issues at Barnstable County. We're always looking to provide new services and make sure that we're protecting the ground and surface water of Cape Cod. So I'm sure over time we'll come up with new projects and ideas to present as services we can provide. We don't ourselves hold, with the exception of the Cape Cod Commission, hold any regulatory authority. So we strictly provide services with the intent that we're providing sort of economies of scale on things, whereas a town might have to fund a half-time position to track all their IA systems. We're able to fund less staff that is shared across the entire Cape. So we can do it at a reduced cost and actually have a better ability to track, as an example. So jumping into the Community Septic Management Program. So that was enabled as part of the Betterment Law, Chapter 111, Section 127B and a half. I think they must have run out of letters and stuff at some point and had to add a half in there. So originally it was set up where the state revolving fund loans to the communities at 0%. The communities lend to the homeowners at 5% or less. They anticipated towns would select either 2 or 5%, but there is some flexibility there. The community, once they have loaned the money out and have received it back, pays back the SRF. They keep the interest. The towns are able to, reloan the money, or, in some cases it has gone to other initiatives in town. So that's sort of the basic project that sort of got started with the whole septic management loan program, septic management program. In 2004, we actually got some legislation passed, which was Chapter 380 of the laws of 2004, that allowed Barnstable County to actually loan money as part of the betterment law. So we borrowed money from SRF at that 0%, started loaning it out back then. Each of the towns have joined in, so we provide most of the septic loan funds that are out there. Some of the towns did keep their own programs. Mashpee does have a small pot of money that they have maintained available as septic management loans. But the vast majority has gone through the county program at this point. So up through the current day, there have been 4,369 total loans. 2,618 of them have been fully repaid. And some of that money has gone back to repay our SRF loans, and some has gone back out and it has been reloaned. At this point, we've loaned out, as of yesterday evening when I pulled these numbers, over $50 million over the course of the program, definitely closing in on 51 in a very short period of time. So we originally, pulled out a smaller pool of money. I believe it was 20 to 25 million dollars, and then have since been able to reloan some of that collected principal and interest over the years. And the program also funds the staff that are required to initiate the loans, do the title searches, and do the billing and collections piece of things. So I'm kind of a data nerd, being a director of a test center, so and a physics nerd as well. So just a little bit of loan data for you, just for the sake of curiosity. So these are the total amount of loans finalized per month since June 2006, and you can see more or less it's been fairly stable with fluctuations, sort of intermittent in it, but more or less the sort of average has remained somewhere around $300,000 worth of loans per month over the course of the program. Every once in a while we get a big loan for a bigger multifamily project or something like that, and you'll see some spikes related to those projects, but for the most part, it's fairly stable in terms of total amount finalized. When it comes to average principal per loan, the average cost of a septic system installation has increased over the period of time that this program has been in place. So when we started out, it was about $10,000 or so, and now we're up somewhere around $13,000 to $14,000 per installation. And you can see again, those larger blips are probably the result of larger projects that have come along. Those multifamily projects. So, as everybody knows, costs go up over time with inflation and increased cost of living, and this is definitely one of the direct results of that. So the loan terms themselves. So we loan out at a 5% interest rate. In the event that somebody defaults or is unable to make a payment, those types of things, the rate goes up to 14%. 14% is codified in the actual legislation, so that's a requirement at 14%. We do have more flexibility with 5%. So, Barnstable County has been sort of looking at the idea of offering a reduced interest rate where septic systems or advanced septic systems might be deployed in larger volume in order to lower the cost for the folks who have to install the systems. There's a maximum 20-year repayment term associated with these loans. You can pay it in a shorter period of time. There is for those who, cases where somebody might, be looking to sell their property, and, when they sell, they include the septic loan cost in the sales, the total sales cost, and they turn around and immediately pay the loan right off. We do, charge a small amount of interest to cover our costs associated with that. They might never make a monthly payment, but there's still an origination cost that is sort of built into that interest piece. We offer monthly payments. In the past, quarterly payments were offered, but we've reduced it to monthly to simplify things a bit. And as some of you may know, these septic loans, they exist in the first lien position. So they actually take precedence over a mortgage once people enter into these betterments. So the septic loan program always gets paid back when there's a property transfer. It's while probably frustrating to those who are trying to sell their properties, it does allow us to keep the program sort of running with minimal loss from foreclosures and those types of things. So it definitely provides that additional public health benefit. Eligible projects. So a system must be failed per Title V criteria. So for the most part, you're talking about your hydraulic failures. So situations where the leach field is, backed up, backed up into maybe the D box, or is backed up to the surface, or has backed up into the home. Those are the typical situations where somebody would have a failed system. One of the other cases is a groundwater elevation type of situation where it's maybe a Title V compliant system that was installed back in the late 90s, and groundwater has changed in the interim, and with the required inspection it was found that the groundwater level had increased. So those situations are probably few and far between, but they do occur and count as failures. And then there are additional criteria. Some of the towns require that, they say that cesspools are automatically failed. Again, because I live in Mashpee, I'll just use it as the example. Mashpee counts cesspools as failed when they are inspected. So when there's a transfer inspection, that cesspool has to be replaced. So the loans can be used for that as well. This counts for residential properties only. There was a time when we were able to offer some commercial loans for mom and pop type of businesses, but the state has since asked us not to do that anymore. So we have gone back to lending strictly for residential properties. That can include condominiums and apartments. And it could include like a cluster type system in those condominiums, apartments, or shared type systems as well. It includes alternative septic systems. So, if they are looking to get an additional bedroom, or they have setback requirement issues, they are able to fund alternative septic systems using the loan program. And it also allows for loans for sewer hookups. So if you have an existing system that is on a Title V system and the sewer comes along, they can actually use the loan program to pay for that sewer hookup. Because in Title
Brian,
V,
on the
yes.
sewer hookup, you don't have to have a failing Title V.
Right. Because Title V specifically says that when sewer is available, you shall connect. So they consider it a scenario where the loan program will fund those. I'm trying to think of
How is that
else.
going? Are you doing a lot of the sewer hookup loans right now?
No, there haven't been a whole ton of them yet. I suspect as, some of these larger sewer projects start to roll out, like the one in Harwich is, really starting to come together. Chatham's continually expanding. Barnstable is doing some projects to expand. We'll see more of those. But right now it's kind of just a status quo in terms of sewer hookups. And, we would expect that to increase over time. And sewer hookups are one of the situations where we were looking at perhaps offering a reduced interest rate to folks to get things, connected and done. Because in a lot of cases, folks are required to do the sewer hookup themselves. It's not municipally funded. Let's see. Oops. Click ahead for me here. There we go. Application specifics. So one of the great things about this program is we don't do any kind of credit check. So the septic loan program is really intended to address an immediate public health concern, which is a failed septic system. So we want to make sure the system gets replaced. So we don't do the credit checks. We'll work with some title issues, but if there are some, major problems with titles, there have been a few cases where we've had to deny loans based on that. Those situations have been very few and far between. So pretty much anybody who applies to this program will be approved. The homeowner will go out once they have applied for the loan. They'll go out and obtain the bids for design and installation and contracts for the work. So we always recommend that folks go out and get at least 3 bids for that design and installation work. So as you know, it kind of comes from the fact that us as a government entity, we would have to do 3 quotes. So we always recommend doing 3 quotes. They don't necessarily have to, but shopping around is definitely a good thing to do when it comes to such a big ticket item like this. Once the work is underway and is complete, we issue a single party check directly to the contractor. And then once the certificate of compliance for the system has been issued by the health department, is when we issue the final payment for the loan. So just to to kind of make it easy on the homeowner, they don't ever have to handle the funds. It just goes directly to the contractors as the work gets completed. One thing I want to kind of come back to with eligible projects, and sort of as a little bit of an offshoot of that. So what does a septic loan cover? So it's able to cover pretty much anything that's associated with the cost of the installation. So it'll cover the design work, and it'll even cover design work that was done prior to getting the loan. I don't recall off the top of my head what we set the limitation on. If I can find it before I'm done. I believe it's 30 days. So if you get the design work done 30 days prior to applying for the loan, it can be included as part of the loan. It includes the installation, so anything associated with the contractor who's doing the work. It will also provide the funds to return the site to its original conditions. So if you had landscaping, you need to repair the lawn, those types of things, or the driveway needs repair, the loan can also pay for those situations. So that's sort of that program really in a nutshell. It's a really good program. Like I said, it's offered a lot of folks a way to replace their failed septic system with sort of minimal pain, or folks who might not otherwise be able to do it. Like I said, the program is really intended as a public health and environmental health sort of backstop. So that's the intention. That's why we do no credit checks and try to work with everybody that we can to make sure that septic systems get replaced. So yeah, that's the information on that. And I don't know if you want to take some questions on that at this point, or I can, kind of talk about some of the other wastewater stuff if I have time. Oh, I think you're on mute, Ryan.
Let's see if there's any questions that come in through the Q&A. So you mentioned no credit checks, also obviously no income checks as well.
Correct. The only situation where we have to do income checks is if they're requesting a deferral, and we can do that for folks who are over age 65. There is a limit. I don't recall what the number is. I think it's $20,000 for an income limit for that deferral situation. So you're allowed to defer the loan for 5 years. But other than that, there is no income check.
The question came in, the hookup needs to be done by the homeowner, period, or just, for property transfer? I mean, this is hook up to any time. Alice, I'm trying to understand your question. I think you're asking any time that they have a failing septic, whether it's at transfer or not. If you just had a failing septic through the course of the project, through the course of the life of the home, you would be able to get the loan, right?
Yep, that's correct. At any time that it's failed, it can be replaced via this program.
And also for septic hookups, I think she said for municipal. So for septic hookups, for sewer hookups, you can do it anytime during the life of the home as well, not just a transfer.
Correct. Yes. As soon as the sewer goes past your house, you can do it at any point. I know the towns typically set some sort of requirements as to timeline to connect, but yeah, I mean, it could be done at any point.
So Allison's question is like, but Title V, it failed. So I think there's 2 different avenues here that you're talking about. So one is replacement of a septic system itself has to be, and putting in a new septic system would be when the Title V has failed. For sewer hookup, the Title V does not have to have failed
Correct.
in working, right?
It can be a functional system, but like I said, because Title V says that when sewer is available, you shall connect to it.